Welcome to the Hope College Orange and Blue Athletics Podcast. This is Alan Babbitt, Sports Information Director in the new year, 2021, and looking forward to chatting weekly with Hope College staff, coaches, and just get to know what's going on. And with us today is our Director of Athletics, Tim Schoonveld, who's gracing us to give us a little bit of time. I know a busy time right now, Tim, with all the plans to get the semester started and competitions and practices resuming. And obviously we probably can't move forward without looking back to last semester, and certainly an unusual one, with no competitions, challenging, but also I think, pretty rewarding talking to you and others and our student athletes. What do you remember about that semester and what you saw, how we as a Hope Athletics family were able to work through those challenging times?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Alan, and for your work on this. It's been a pretty, I think interesting is the right word. I think when you're in the middle of all the COVID related stuff, it's pretty trying and tiring. But then I think when you take a minute and step back, you can definitely see, I think God, sending some gifts in that regard, even though it's a lot different than probably any of us would have hoped for. I joke, I met with one of our teams again, and I joke with them, I like to be positive and encouraging, and we try to set a mantra here of choosing joy and just, optimistic. And I think I've turned a little bit into, when I walk up to meetings or into people's offices, I'm either the Grim Reaper or they all pull up their mask. If I'm around students, they think that I'm going to get yelled at them for that. So that's been a little less desirable, and hopefully we can get back to just enjoying that. But yeah, I think obviously for people in athletics, not having athletics is pretty disappointing, and I think we thrive off that. We get energy from talking and being around our student athletes. We get energy from watching them compete. You learn who they are, right? So, there's a whole group of freshmen that are just hard for me to know because I haven't really interacted with them or seen them compete. So, that's been difficult. It's obviously been difficult, watching, it's pretty heartbreaking for seniors who've competed for, 12 years or so in something and put so much time, effort, and energy into being a collegiate athlete. And then, that gets wiped out, through no fault of their own with, no remedy for that. So, that stuff's been really difficult. I think on the other end, and you can maybe speak to this too, but, the sporting world is takes. When you work in athletics, it just takes, right? It takes all your time. You work, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks. You are pretty much on call, all the time, and, those types of things. And so there's been some uniqueness, I think, for everybody. And this isn't just specific to me of, hey, like some priorities of like, hey, family matters. And I'm spending time at home. For us, we've got, some kids in college. I've got a daughter, that I've probably spent, 4 or 5 weeks with in my house, when I never would have spent time with her like this again. We went to Florida over Christmas. We never would have been able to do that. And that's a pretty cool thing. I think it's been pretty inspiring to watch. Our student athletes here at Hope have been amazing. It's been really inspiring to watch them. They've done everything we've asked without complaining. They're trying, and it's a hard time for students right now. And that, it's hard for us as old people or as adults to know what's going on, but then to imagine when you're an 18 to 22-year-old, like, hey, I don't get this. And then when you add on top of that, the political tensions that are out there, the racial tensions that are out there, it's just a hard time. And so it's been inspiring to watch them. And I'll say this too, and our coaches, they maybe hear this and laugh, but, coaches are used to, they're highly competitive control freaks. Most of them, all of them. And they're used to kind of being the king or queen of their own kingdom. And, this has been a time where they've had no control. And to watch them sort of shift from a mindset of, hey, competitive excellence, like it's all about the competition, to a mindset of, hey, how do I love and look after my team? How do I care for them? How do I creatively connect with them? Has been really just kind of fascinating, but also I think really inspiring for me, just in this role. So, I would still take the games and playing, and wish that were the case. But I think it's definitely been, pretty exciting to see, and I think I'd be probably remiss if I didn't say, our staff has just been, outstanding. I mean, you, Alan, and Eva have been amazing with the sports information side. The articles that are coming out, I think Caroline Dykstra, excuse me, Courtney Cust and Lindsay Engelsman have just kept things together, social media, trying to think of creative ways to thank and honor people. Tim Caberna and our athletic training staff, I mean, they've kind of put themselves in harm's way. And so it's been really great. And I know obviously there's others too, but I think just with our staff, it's been really exciting. And I mean, you love to be a part of this team, and I'm just thankful to be a part of it.
I know a lot of work has gone into, we went into the summer and preparing for, then the fall didn't happen, but now you're preparing and we're, getting close to having competition again. And can you, as best you can, summarize what it is to put together a practice schedule and a game schedule in these times with so many zigs and zags and just a variety of things, just for the average fan may not really get kind of all the work that goes in, to trying to put something together, not only safely, but then to provide competition that everyone wants.
Yeah, it's been interesting because, some of my friends give me a hard time. They're like, well, you don't have sports, so you're not doing anything. Or they're like, hey, what are you doing? And then I say, well, basically I'm spending 3 months planning and preparing and doing a bunch of work to get ready for a season. And then in 1 week, I flush it down the toilet, and then I have to kind of encourage and keep people's spirits up. And then we start all over and we do it again. And, now we're actually kind of on the third iteration of that, where we've had to kind of start over. The interesting thing, and again, we're not, different than others, but, we have about, we have 5 or 6 entities that we're having to work under, and they all have similar rules but different rules. So for us, it's first there's the college expectations and what we're doing as an institution, and then that bleeds into the county, right? And we spend a lot of time with Dr. Heidel and his staff from Ottawa County Health Department. And then that leads into, we're under the, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services orders. So all of those 3, we've got to kind of navigate when we're trying to do something. And then on top of that, when it comes to the sport related stuff, then we look at the league level, at the MIAA, we're trying to build some consensus and some health and safety standards that everybody's going to adhere to, because there's some different, it's not just your day-to-day stuff. And then, to make it even more complex is then we're answering to the NCAA and what they expect. And there's all kinds of things in regard to testing, in regard to fans, in regard to facility uses and percentages. And, if we've learned anything right now, everybody interprets things a little bit different, not to mention our league has 2 schools from Indiana. So they're under different expectations than what we are. And so it's been very, very difficult. What we try to do is we take the information we have, we plan out and the schedule. So we spent, May, June, July planning for the fall, and we plan out a schedule as best we can. And then when the state and the government kind of pulled the plug on some things, then we had to do the same. And then, you kind of are doing the same thing again. So right now, we're planning on 22 sports participating, plus hockey, that's going to be participating this spring. So now, we live in Michigan, right? So you have snow and cold. So how do you get everybody on fields? We're really blessed at Hope to have amazing facilities, but we're not set up to have facilities for all 22 at a time. So then you look at that, we really don't have staffing set up, in terms of athletic training and stuff to cover all of the sports at all of the times. And so we're trying to kind of, it really, this spring is a little bit of triage for us. And we're getting close with the winter sports to potentially participating. We're feeling confident in doing that. And so now we're really working on like specific, like I would say, like COVID related plans for hosting. So what does that look like at DeVos Fieldhouse for, competitions? What doors do teams come in? How are we cleaning the lockers and the benches? How do we test officials? Who's testing them? Who's paying for them? How do we test students? And then that, just bleeds out to if they go on the road, what are we doing for transportation? Our swim team participates or competes at the Holland Community Aquatic Center. And so what does it look like to run an event there? So there's just a ton of details, and I'm just really, really grateful. And I feel pretty blessed with the staff that we have here, and everybody's kind of doing their part. It's ironic. Our theme for this year is one team, that, hey, we're all one team, and it fits perfectly, right? We're just one team. We're trying to help each other out and figure that out. And it's exciting, exhilarating, tiring, frustrating, pretty much every emotion you could think of.
With basketball, obviously being an indoor sport and the times we're in now, and obviously waiting on the orders and direction from the state government, but what's it going to take as far as testing and mask wearing, as far as competition, what that's going to look like? Fortunately, we're able to play and tip off at DeVos Fieldhouse in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different orders, so there's NCAA guidance in terms of testing. Then obviously Michigan is a bit stricter with the Department of Health and Human Services. So we are a little stricter than some other places. So we've got to adhere to that. So right now, our basketball teams are coming in. We're testing them 2 to 3 times a week with a PCR testing, which is a little bit of the gold standard. We've worked out something with Trident Labs here in town, so we can get results back a lot quicker. I appreciate Tim Caberna's work on that. And then we're really at the mercy a bit of the Health and Human Services order here in the state in terms of masking. And so in terms of masking, you're required to have test 6 days a week, if you want to not play with, or if you want to play without a mask. And so if you watch, the Pistons, if you watch Michigan State, they're able to play without a mask because they're testing 6 days a week for their students. And so even though the contact level is really high, they can kind of pull that back. And that's really a state order right now. Our hope, is that at some point that will change. We're not anticipating it will. And so right now, we don't anticipate to test 6 times a week because we don't think at the league level that all of our schools will. And so I think at this point we'll probably be held to the standard of wearing a mask. So you'll see our teams wearing a mask, which creates a whole other slew of who's going to manage that, who's going to keep track of that, of whether they have it or don't have it and whatever. And so yeah, I mean, we honestly, like, we're at the point now where we're just grateful to be practicing. We're grateful to have the opportunity to try and play. We're thankful that, our teams have come back and are able to get started. And so I think that's really our focus. If we've got to play with a mask, yeah, that stinks. It's not our favorite, but we're just going to do it. And then, we'll keep hoping that when the new orders come out, that maybe there'll be some changes. I think with a reminder, Alan, and I would be remiss to not say this, we want to do it safely and we want it to be safe. So it's, in the end, we believe that sport can transform students' lives. It's transformed mine and many of our other staff. It's a difference making thing, but it is just sport. And so the health and the safety is more important. Making sure that we're not the cause for the college to have to pause or shut down as the athletic department is really critical to us. And, we want to keep people healthy. and we want people around. And so, all of this is our job, and we're doing it, and we want to do it because we want to impact lives, but we're always mindful of that. And I think hope is gold standard right now in terms of health and safety and how we've done things, and the integrity with which we do it. And we're going to keep following that. And we just hope that while doing that, we can still participate in some contests.
Obviously, athletic directors like yourself, put your heart and soul into this job. For you, on top of that, you're a dad of, as you mentioned earlier, two student athletes. Kennedy, an outstanding All-American basketball player, tremendous unbeaten season last year, got caught up with having the season shut down. And your son Eli is a freshman on the men's basketball team. So you're having to kind of manage all those emotions, and as a parent and as well as administrator, just talk about that and kind of what you learned and how you've tried to handle that. Because that's, it's tough as an AD, but also tough as a dad when you got to say, sorry, we can't play, or we have to pause. And
yeah, on some levels, I think having students here has helped, maybe a little bit of credibility just with people and decisions and that type of stuff, especially with negative and bad decisions. On other levels, last year when we had to shut down, the Kennedy's team was in the middle of a, amazing run, had a chance to potentially win the national championship. And it was just, a great season, and we just kind of got pulled out. And, the timing of it, I mean, everything just kind of hit. I didn't even have a chance to really like grieve or be sad about it. And I felt kind of bad about that because it was just kind of, we had to go and we had to work and communicate, and we didn't know what was going on in March, and we thought it was only going to be a week or two, and just weird times. I think this summer, and even this fall, when it became pretty apparent to me that no matter what we have for a season for our winter and really fall teams, it's going to be not great. I mean, it's going to be great to play, but I mean, in terms of it, hey, everyone wants a 25 game season. They don't want a 12 or a 13 game season, and, some of that kind of stuff. So, there's a couple days where it just sort of hit me of like, man, that's just going to be tough. It's a tough way to have her go out to, they've got 9 seniors that have all been together, and it's been, a cool run. They've got, maybe even a better team this year than last year. And, then to kind of have that. So that's been, kind of a sad thing, but, it's given some good perspective again. And I mean, I'm saying this is my job. I do it for a living. Sports changed my life. But it's just sport, and I think, I'm pretty grateful, we haven't had to experience COVID in our house. We've been able to be together. I'm just grateful for how my family's been, and, Hope's a place that's transformed my wife and I's life. And, when we were here and even now, and I think to watch our kids, be impacted by their coaches, and, Cully Carlson and Brian Morehouse and Courtney Cust with Kennedy. And, then you get, Coach Mitch and Coach Carlson and those guys, Coach George, Coach Dav, impacting Eli's. I mean, it again shows me the difference that people can make. And I think, again, I'm completely biased, but the difference that Hope is, and this is a place that's going to love and care for your kids. And I've experienced that. And so we're hopeful for some sport. We've had, obviously with Kennedy, we've had a lot of fun and a lot of blessings and a good run. And hopefully they get some opportunities this year. And if not, we'll grieve it a little bit, and then we'll keep moving on.
What is it about sport for you that has been such a transformational part of your life and a essential part of your life? I mean, you were, obviously enjoyed playing and played at the college level before, knee problems kind of took you off the sidelines, but then you became a very successful coach. And at the high school level, I met you at Holland Christian when you coached there, and then now moving in as an athletic director. What is it about sport that kind of, has grabbed you and kind of been something that's been with you throughout?
Yeah, I mean, it's too long to kind of get into specifics, but like on many levels, I feel like the opportunity to be involved in sport has really like saved and like pointed the trajectory of my life into really positive and amazing ways. And that's the people, that's Mike Phelps in high school, that is my high school coach, that's Glenn Van Weeren here at Hope, and like countless other people that have invested in me, and used sport as a tool and a vehicle to change a kid's life. And I think that has just had a profound impact. I would say, I think sport has some uniqueness to it that allows for some extra growth. But I think, being involved in sort of co-curriculars and extracurriculars, across the board, I think people in music, fine arts, those types of things, if it's done right, a teacher and a coach can literally like change the trajectory of somebody's life. And that's what I found in mine, is that they changed my life. I still every summer, I have a golf outing with my high school basketball coach, Mike Phelps. He's a Hall of Fame coach. I love him. I mean, one of the most important people in my life. And the interesting and really fun thing for me to watch with sport is, now that I'm old, I'm seeing sort of like the fruit of investing in people and how that just comes back around. And Mike Phelps was my high school coach, completely invested in me, changed my whole trajectory. We're very close, hired me again at Holland Christian to coach and teach over there. And then, when my daughter comes up, then Mike's daughter, Carissa, who I coached, winds up being Kennedy's coach. And it just sort of spirals down. My youngest daughter, Tegan's at Holland Christian, one of my former athletes who I coached at Holland Christian, Heather Swearinga, is her coach now. And so I just really see and believe in the power of sport. And I think it's really the power of people. And so when you say, hey, this is something I love, I'm going to take something I love and then I'm going to use it to be able to kind of transform your life. And that's what's happened to me. And so I'm eternally grateful to them. I think God certainly blessed me. And I think it's just another reminder to me of, hey, find what you love and then use that tool to be able to influence and impact people's lives, in your world, whatever that is. For you, it might be writing stories or podcasts, and for other people it's music, and for other people it's teaching. I mean, there's just a variety of different things, but I think for me that's been sport, and I'm just kind of very, very humbled and thankful to be where I am because of the people who've done that for me.
And lastly, Tim, too, with that, obviously you talked about Coach Van Weeren, your experience at Hope as a transformational place for you. What was it about your time here that, helped kind of propel you as an adult and in your career? What made Hope that place for you that you're obviously trying to make for other people?
I think on some levels, I mean, Hope was a place of like redemption for me. I mean, I had knee injuries and I couldn't really play. I got recruited very heavily by Coach Van Weeren, amazing, again, man. And I had to sit in his office at the Dow Center and tell him I was choosing to go to Calvin over Hope. And, I still remember sitting across from him, and that was, 30 years ago. And the grace and dignity and class that he showed, how he just loved me. And then, a year and a half later, when it wasn't great for me at Calvin, and again, it's a great school, but it just wasn't a good fit for me. He just said, Scooney, you need to be at Hope. And then kind of took me under his wing and invested in me. And, and then the people that I've met here, and I think of, John Huskin as the registrar, and I think of Rich Ray, who was the first person to see me after I tore my ACL in high school. And then Rich was the person that hired me here. And, Ray Smith, my predecessor in the AD job, Ray sent me, as soon as I got hired, said, congratulations, and said, I want you to know this is the greatest, this is the greatest job that there is in the country. And I just want you to know that. And he still says that to me. And so I think people like that, I just continue to find like people matter. And people matter in terms of like having your life invested in and being able to have those mentors and those people. I see that now with people like Kirk Brummels, Paul Boersma, Matt Scogan, Scott Vanderstoop, that are investing in me to be able to do that. And then I think that's motivation for me to kind of continue to do that with others, to try to influence and impact, because, as we've seen in this year, like the world needs like the world needs light. And I think the people of hope bring light. And that's what, I think God's call for all of us is. And I think that's what, we really desire. And so, that's what our hope is to say, hey, we want to play sport. We want to celebrate. We want to all Americans, and we want to win, and we want to do all of this. And it's great. But like, hey, like when God's plan turns a little different way, how do we help bring light through what we do? And, I'm so proud of like our staff and everybody, you included, Alan, with, I think we've tried to do the best we can to bring light in difficult times. And I think that's training people. And I know, hey, I'm never going to be the president of the United States. I'm never going to cure cancer. But I just might influence and change the trajectory of somebody who does and who becomes one of those. And I think that's kind of what drives me. And I think what people have done for me. And so I just feel really blessed and grateful.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you for the work you're doing and the light you're trying to provide. And we'll hopefully be reporting on some games and some competitions here sooner than later. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.